at some point throughout your entrepreneurial business journey, you will experience your first taste of success, right? You will have your initial piece of the pie. And whether for you that's going to be making your first 5K, your first 10K, or having 50K liquid in the bank, or 100K, or 500K, or even making your first million, it doesn't matter. At some point, you will start to pretty much run out of this initial drive that you have when you are super hungry, because your needs will have been met, right? You will get comfortable essentially, and this is something that you have to be super aware of, and just simply like be mindful of it and not let it happen to you, or catch it as soon as it happens, because otherwise what would happen to you is essentially you get your first bit of success, you're growing at a really quick rate, and then things slow down, and then things stagnate for a while, and then things start going downhills, okay? And then you will be wondering like, well, what happened here? Like, am I just a complete failure? Am I that one hit wonder, that everybody talks about and laughs at a few years later? And it's not really that. Like, if you had the skills to get success once, and it wasn't a luck type of thing where maybe you just bought the right coin with your last $1,000 and it pumped 100x, right? As long as you've actually built a real business, a real service-based business or e-com business, doesn't matter what kind of business, over let's say a year or 2 years, and you've managed to get it to a point where it got you financially comfortable, you have the skills to do it. So it doesn't have really anything to do with your skills, most likely. It has to do with your mentality, right? Because at some point you have gotten comfortable and you stop doing the things, you stop doing the habits, and you stop doing the actions which got you that initial bit of success in the first place. And this is something, funny enough, that as long as you have this, you will not feel like really good in your skin. Like if you're experiencing this right now, I know how it feels. It's absolutely horrible because you have like this crippling self-doubt once you've been through a period of, building your income up to a pretty high level, then stagnating and then it going down a bit. Like you will start to question everything about you. You will start to question if you're that guy who can build it back up. And you can, as long as you really just identify like what are the main things that you are doing differently now that you got comfortable, right? And I'm saying this from personal experience. Like I've kind of noticed this in myself a little bit, and I just wanted to make this video to share this message that, you know, 4 years ago, I wouldn't have done some of the things that I've done last week. And what I mean by that is, 4 years ago, my previous version of myself, who was super hungry, just like trying to make something of himself and just get something started, I would have never drank on a random Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. with my friends because I got invited out. Or I would have never went on a random, just lunch at 1 p.m. for 2 hours on a Wednesday. And these are two actions specifically that I've done in the last couple of weeks. And not to say that I regret them, but the previous version of myself who was just starting out in the beginning, he was super hungry. He had very, very high standards of basically accomplishment and achievement and performance, right? And so I realized, like, damn, I really have to get back to being that guy, that person who I was just a few years ago, because that's the only way I can make my progress pick back up, right? Not to say that my business is struggling or not doing well or anything like that, but the progress has definitely slowed down a bit, in the last couple of months. And it's a very annoying feeling, and it makes you really just frustrated and furious. And the funny thing is, it doesn't matter at which stage it happens to you at, you will feel the same exact thing and the same exact emotions. Like, I had this happen to me when I started making 5K a month while I was still in high school as a video editor. And up until getting to that point, I was just exhilarated. I was super happy. I was really proud of the person I was being. Then I got to 5K, I got complacent, I stopped doing the initial work that got me those results, and then my progress slowed down, and I went down a little bit, and I went down until I felt so bad about how I was acting that I started picking my old good habits back up, and my progress, went up again. And then I hit like 15 to 20K a month. I got comfortable and complacent again. I was finally able to travel, do the things I wanted, and my business slowed down, right? Then I got around people who were doing more than me. I started feeling very bad about where I was, and then my progress just shot up again in like a couple of months, right? And so I've kind of been experiencing that again. Last year, we had a lot of growth in the business. And by the end of the year, I noticed myself kind of like still wanting to get more, still wanting to push, but I started to feel proud. I started to feel kind of like happy with where I was. And pride always comes before the fall, right? As they say. So whenever you start feeling like things are good, you can take your foot off the gas now. Be very, very careful with that, because the pain that you will experience from like staying in that place for a while is going to be immense, right? And I'm not saying you have to spare yourself from that. If you want to go through it, by all means, right? But it's going to be the same kind of pain at any level. Even one of my friends who I was just having dinner with last week, he's 22 years old. He has basically an 8-figure net worth, like after tax, at 22 years old, same age as me. Built one of the biggest education companies in just a couple of years. Very, very impressive, right? Like, pretty much anybody could look at that and say like, wow, that's like, super incredible, like 0.00001% achievement. And yet he was telling me about how he felt last year when he's made the most amount of money he's ever made in his life, how he still felt like he left a lot on the table and he was kind of stuck, and how he felt like he went away from that kid who he was just 4 years ago in his parents' house, and and just grinding it out. Like, he was telling me, hey, Vince, I need to go back to being that guy who was hungry. I feel like as I got money, I got soft, right? And by most people's metrics, he's not soft by any means. He's hardworking and everything, but by his own, old standards, he has gotten soft. And I kind of felt like I experienced the same in the last year. Like, I got pretty comfortable, and my progress slowed down, and I was like, fuck, like I started having all these self-doubt coming up again and creeping up. And the only way to solve it is to look at, again, the things you stopped doing that you were doing when you had that initial progress, and then go back to being that guy. Go back to being that hungry kid in the basement, trying to make it. And if you can maintain that attitude for a long period of time, you will accomplish amazing things. And I'm not saying that that has to be your drive or motivation forever in life. Like, realistically, at some point you do have to go from a place of like running away from something to being pulled towards something, because when you have everything around you, it's very hard to artificially keep up that inner drive that otherwise would come from just building something from scratch. But regardless, try to stay in that zone for a while. If you feel like you are slipping out of it, just realize that it will happen to you as well. Like, you will get comfortable, and once you get comfortable, you get complacent, you stop going the extra mile. Your business will first just slow down in terms of the growth, then you'll stagnate for a bit, and then you will start shrinking. And so you are either always growing or you're dying. There is no in between. You cannot really stagnate for a while. It doesn't really happen. Like, you're either growing together with the marketplace or you're being left behind. And this is something I was told all of the time by my old mentor, Sam Bakhtiar, rest in peace. He was one of my first clients, and I learned a lot from him, honestly. He was also Hormozi's first mentor, so it's pretty funny. Like, I only learned about Hormozi once Sam already passed away, but yeah. Anyways, I'm getting a bit carried away there, but he was always telling me this: Vince, you're either dying or you're growing, or you're either growing or you're dying. And at that time, I didn't understand it. I didn't know what he meant, but now looking back, I 100% understand what he was trying to tell me as a young kid, and he was totally right. So hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next video.